Monsieur George.
Hello.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah, I'm here, and you too.
Oh, yes.
What a surprise!
What a surprise! It's like
In a sunny, beautiful sunny
beautiful
day.
sunny day,
Yeah.
isn't it? So, finally, the third part of the trilogy
Yes.
has arrived. It began in Vision du Réel, then it was in Cannes, Acid Cannes, and it has been around. It was in Buenos Aires Dog Film Festival,
In
was
Jeonju.
in Jeonju, and some other places, and now here in
Yes.
Vienna.
Yes.
How is your perspective about the three together? How do you think dialectical, finally, you could see how they work?
It was. The three parts are totally autonomous, so it's possible to watch the films very separately, but in the same time, of course, they are totally connected because of the topics and the content, but also because of the composition of the film. And even if it wasn't expected to make a trilogy, during the process, very step by step, the drawing was there, that the film will become a trilogy. And I play with, when I make the editing, I try to compose each films in connection with the others. So you have a kind of circulation of topics, content, a plastic motif, sometimes word, scene. Just a few examples. In the second part, at one moment, you have the young guys and they fight for joking, in a park. And when I was in Paris and I met some guys that I met in Melia, at this time in Paris, they repeat the same gesture. It wasn't the same guys, but they repeat the same gesture. So I thought that it will be very interesting to make also a scene like that. So in the second part and the third part, you have this kind of symmetrical scene, with the fight. And it's like that also, for example, how I play with the colors, with some motif of the trees, nature, or sometimes gesture, The idea is, of course, not to create a repetition, but to try to create some correspondence and resonance between...
Maybe repetition and difference.
Absolutely.
That's the way that I see it.
And especially because for the second part, you're right, so the second part is very often based on the minimal gestures of the children in the street. So apparently we can think that you have a lot of repetition of things, but it's not repetition, it's variation. Repetition of some movement creates some variation and difference. And in a way, it's a way to try to translate, of course, the daily life of the child, the teenager, but also to try to show how they can experiment some new form of life, and how the repetition of the same, the idea of the hair is on the earth, like a Stringbird says, in their way, the fact to repeat the gesture, to go on the port and try to jump, this kind of stuff, create some new things, because of course the idea is to define some new line of flight, of escape.
That is something that I can see in the three films, because they should be in a state of desperation. Despair is there, but at the same time there is a kind of solidarity, male solidarity, which is very interesting because, as you say, they can fight. That's the macho moment, so to speak, but there is a kind of tenderness around them, which is not particularly something connected with macho type way of living or affection, or how to feel feelings, so to speak. So that is, I think that is something that I've seen in the three films, and it's quite. There's something to be learned there.
Yeah. Absolutely. In their situation, you have a lot of sadness, despair, but you have also this kind of urgent vitality, or how Pasolini said, la vitalité désespérée, desperate vitality, And of course sometimes a lot of joy, because they laugh a lot.
That is something that is fantastic in the film, because there is plenty of moments of leisures. They swim, the music, or
Yeah, because you know they consider they are very young, so they have a kind of resilience, of course. Of course, some of them are very impacted by the past. You know, a lot of people came from the street, live in the street since they are 8 years old. You know, but in the same time, during the life, they try to joke, to support even the situation, because the situation is very hard. They share something in common. They share something in common. The fact to leave a country which doesn't want to them, you know. They share the fact to try to escape from a situation of non-existence. They share in common the violence, familial violence, the violence in the neighborhood. A lot of them, and some of them told me that after that in Paris, because I have a very sometimes close relation with some people, and they told me, yeah, we knew some sexual assault.
Yeah.
A lot of them are totally beaten. Was beaten we are beaten by their parents or father, something like that, or no communication with the father, or the father abandoned them. You know, they share in common some very complicated difficulties, and also after that they are in transit in Melilla, and the life, of course, you have to survive. It's not possible to survive alone, you know. So you have to have, it's necessary
but that is one of the most interesting things in opposition to our society nowadays, that everything is extremely difficult to survive by ourselves. And the idea is, like Godard used to say, save it, each one of us, you know, alone. And the film shows another way, which is quite interesting. I wanted to ask you something, which is, the first two, of course, take place mainly in Melilla.
In Melilla.
But the last part of the second one is already in Paris, which is a beautiful moment, because the boy begins with a kind of poem, rap poem or something like that. But now everything is in Paris.
Yeah.
So you have done a film which has a connection, which is the one called Paris Used to Be a Party. I don't know how to say it in French.
Paris est une fête. Paris is
yes.
Yeah, a feast. Yeah.
And there are some similarities, but at the same time, the method is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, what have you understood about the whole process now that those kids or those young fellows are in Paris?
First of all, I told them, because some people sometimes live in the street, and they told me, look at us, you know. We try to escape from Melilla, and now we're in the street in Paris. I said, yes, but you succeed, because your intention was to leave Morocco and reach Europe. And a lot of people doesn't succeed to do that, and you succeed. So your purpose, you have accomplished your purpose, and it's something that you have. It's something that you have to not forget, you know. And I think it's important, because a lot of them lost their trust in themselves, you know. They are totally in the mood, in the life industry. They take drugs, they make some robbery, you know, this kind of stuff. And a lot of them, step by step, are totally in a kind of self-destruction, you know. And destruction is not only self-destruction, of course, it's the violence of the society and the context, you know. But in this place, so I tried to. I spoke a lot about that with them. But another thing is that most of them, after that, some of them have a lot of difficulties, you know, to enter in the center, because they haven't the habit of the rules. They live in the streets since many times. It's totally different than with the sub-Saharan people, for example. The country is different, the culture is different. For them, they accept very easily to go in the center, to follow the rules, to have education. For the people from Morocco, it's totally different, very, very complex. And it's why sometimes the situations are very, very complicated. You know, Mohamed, for example, in Paris is a movable feast. Very quickly, you know, he was in the professional lycée. He had the professional diploma, and after he succeed the BTS. But for them, it's more complicated. The society is different. They are totally deconstructed in terms of education. They leave sometimes school very early. Their situations are so bad. And it's why it's very important what's happened right now in Morocco is absolutely determinant. What we call the generation Z, 212, you know. All these people who now try to make demonstration and fight against the Moroccan society, the destruction of the public service, and in a context or at the same time, the government spent billion and billion to build some new stadium of football for the next Global Cup. All the demonstrations that these people made are very important because these people is the same that you can find in my film. Is the same that who try to reach Europe. And one moment I saw a video. It's nothing, you know. Apparently it's nothing, but for me it was very touching. A young guy said, "Now we are not leaving. You have to leave it. You have to leave and quiet the government." And this sentence was so strong. Like that, apparently it's simple, but it's very strong because it's a real statement of a generation. And this generation are fed up about the dictatorship in Morocco and the inequality of the society.
Usually when I am here, I always begin the interviews with the statues.
Yeah, I remember.
But in your film, this is part of the text of the city. And you always incorporate the letters of the past, because those are the letters of the past. And it's the context and the historical background of why they are living in the way they live, or what is the place that they have decided to arrive. So in Melilla films, as well as in Parisian film, there is a lot of statues and architecture. And you have referred sometimes that that is maybe one of the gestures that you recognize as the avant-garde gestures from the tradition that maybe is part of your background.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about this way of reading the cities, and in this particular case, Paris, and then which are the avant-garde tradition that you feel belong to?
I'm always interested to follow the movement of the body in the space, how they can express themselves in the space and at the time of a town, you know, for example, in Melilla or in Paris. And also it's interesting because I'm interested by the movement of the body in the space and time, because in the same time it's a way to create, you know, and to play with a different level, you know, of reality, of temporality on space. And I like that these people that we don't care, nobody cares, you know. I like the idea that by only the movement, because they put only by their movement, the movement of the body and their mind, they create a kind of movement, a dialectical movement about the things and the human being, you know, and the state of the world. So in Melilla, it's obvious, you know, it's an old colony, you know, but it's one of the latest colony, but it's a Spanish colony in the 16th century. So it's interesting because how do you say that? They are in the town. they appropriate the town, you know, they walk, and suddenly all the strata of the colonialists appear, you know. Of course, some monuments are totally obvious, but but also some other part of the reality. And in Paris, it's the same things. To play with some iconic monument, and it's very ironic, you know, and in a way a little bit tragic, you know. They have a meeting point. They live there just in front of the Eiffel Tower. They are there totally in the dark, you know, in the invisibility, in a place where all the tourists of the world came, you know. So you have some hard telescopage between the reality, you know. So I thought it will be interesting to show that, you know, but not in a didactical way. I show that, of course, by the images, when I try to be precise, to attest about the situation, and I show that also with some plastic research. So, for example, when you are in the front of the Eiffel Tower, you have a lot of light, something like that. And of course, you have all the tradition of the avant-garde films, which play with the motif of the modernity, you know, the light, the speed, the urbanity, the cars, the action in 24 hours. So I try to play in this film, and the film, and even for Paris is a movable feast, I try to play about and to attest about some situation and life condition by an experiment and some references with some technique of the avant-garde, and reactualize in a way some plastic motif or topics that we can find in the avant-garde.
Which avant-garde? The late 20s of the 20th century or the 60s?
First the 20s.
And the Russians or the French?
But the French are very influenced by the Russian. You know, I watched Jean Vigo and Epstein when I was 14 and 15 years old, and something wonderful. I was in Russia. I told them that, you know. Something wonderful is the first short films of Jean Vigo. The images were made by Boris Kaufman, the brothers of Dziga Vertov. So you have a kind of circulation and migration of and importation, you know, of the Russian cinema. Of course, Russian cinema. It's a bit massive when I speak like that. But yeah. Which arrived, you know, in France with Boris Kaufman. It's interesting, you know, and of course after that you have a kind of influence. So it's all this kind of stuff, you know, the films, symphony films, but also after a lot of films about who play on the speed of the role, Chomet, of course Jean Vigo, and after that, you know, a lot of films which try to work about this kind of topics, even during the 60s, you know, some short films of William Klein, this kind of stuff. Of course, after all the avant-garde, the American avant-garde, you know, I appreciate a lot. Yeah.
Tell me something about, you know that your film has been mostly all around the immigrants. That is the main topic of your film. And I wouldn't say the topic, it's the political. But you have chosen a path which is, it seems to me, a kind of micro-political study of how nowadays capitalism is not working.
Yeah.
Why you have chosen the smallest signs of this? You could have chosen another. The only time that I think you made a difference about something more a multitude was versus Madrid.
Yeah.
But
But it was totally
it's not an
connected.
objection.
No. I understand.
I'm telling you that because I think it's very important what you do.
Yeah.
Why you have chosen that now
Yeah.
that you have been working for more than 20 something years?
I don't really work about immigrants, you know, it's not the word immigrant, and I don't want to essentialize the problematic. No, I work about politics, policies. And policies. And I think it's interesting, so I start with the policies about immigration. But first of all, there are policies, you know, public policies. And it's interesting because for many reasons, you know, but something very interesting is that in the policies about immigration you have a lot of experimentation. A lot of experimentation of dispositif. You can see very easily, quickly, the state of the democracy at a moment. And a lot of things experiment in the dispositif about immigration. After you can find this kind of dispositif in the main policies, you know. All the technique of management by the police of the demonstration, and especially during the yellow jacket, something like that, are experiences in the suburb in France or in the policies about immigration. Also, because when I start to, also, of course, it's totally connected with some things that I crossed when I was very young. I grew up in the suburb. A lot of people come from the first generation of people born in France, from Algeria, something like that. And all these kind of people weren't represented in cinema. And I remember I watched Vigo, something like that, and I wanted to watch some films which engage a kind of reflection about cinema, you know, very rigorous and exigent, you know, and about some topics and problematic that I didn't saw in the French cinema. And even right now, it's awful. What you can see right now in French cinema about this kind of topic is very problematic, you know. So
if there is it's problematic.
Sorry?
If there is a film on that, it's problematic. But it's not something usually that you could see in French cinema.
No, and if you see some film on French cinema about immigration, you know, it's always the same position. It's a position of domination from the top, and of course the compassionate approach. And you know, but it's not only in French. It's the same thing in Belgium when some people work about the social topic or political topic. It's always the same software. You know, the same ideology. Is the passion, you know, the passion of the Christ apply to a worker or apply about a guy who try to ask for the political asylum. You know, it's always this kind of compassionate and charity. About Christian approach, Catholic approach, you know, and it's a very it's very problematic because it's depoliticized. Of course, it's a political position, but in a way it's depoliticized the problematic. You know?
And something a brief answer to this, please, because time
and
has gone.
Just a thing to if I continue also to work because. I start to work. I didn't have the ideas to work 20 years about these topics, you know. But you work and you continue to dig, you know, what you try to do, and something more. And you know, at the beginning when I start to make films, I wrote a project. It was supposed to be a short films, you know, in 2 parts. Start in Europe.
If there is
go
something
in Africa,
that you will never be able to do, is something short. My last question, and remember to be short answer.
Yes.
Which is, in all your films, there is such an extraordinary moment in terms of framing, light, how you perceive the environment, how you sometimes portray the face of someone. At the beginning of this last Nuit Obscure, number 3, a child, it's unique, the very beginning of the film. But there's always a kind of objection when I am with you in Q&As or festivals, that I say, well, you are showing such a terrible situation and painful. And some people ask you, it's okay to put it stupidly, to put it in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is the case. But what is the right answer for that for you?
I think it's two things. First, when they say like that, they have an ideas totally kind of a priori, you know, totally constructed. If you make some images about this kind of people, you have to make this kind of images.
Yeah.
So it's a representation. They had a representation, and this representation is totally built and across them without they know that, you know, perhaps, you know. The second thing, sometimes they're right, because a lot of filmmakers aestheticize the reality. And when I spoke about aestheticize, you have a difference between try to build an aesthetic, you know, how you can play with the medium, to try to the medium, the cinematographic medium, to try to attest about the reality. And you have and translate your sensation, you know, aesthesis, the sensation. And you have the aesthetization of the reality or aesthetization of the politic. And it is something totally different. It's the fact to try to create the beauty, you know, for itself. You know, an image for itself. And the subject become a kind of object, you know. The subject is totally instrumentalized and disappear behind the intention of aesthetic, of an idea of the beauty of the filmmaker, that the filmmaker can have, you know. And of course, it's an idea from the external, totally imposed on the subject.
And it's not the case in your case?
Absolutely not. And in this case, you know, it is what we call aesthetization of politics. And it's totally different than the fact to use the medium, the resources of the medium, to try to show the cruelty and the beauty of the people.